turn this on. So a couple of y'all were having trouble with the connection, so you missed the first part yesterday. I'm so sorry. Okay, so quick reminder, homework and quiz for chapter 6 are due tomorrow. We will finish that material today. I did update these notes. We are not going to do 6.5. So if you happen to have printed the notes off beforehand, those like last 3 slides we're not doing. I sent you a notice yesterday that I reposted those notes. So anyway, and that's all gone off the homework and everything. So I just made some executive decisions. I like making executive decisions. They're great. Chapter 7, we will start tomorrow and we will finish it. There's one section in chapter 8 we usually do also. We'll finish it up Monday and or Tuesday of next week. That homework and quiz is due on Tuesday, and then test 3 is on Wednesday, and everything is okay. Thank you, Brandon. And then your final exam, oh my gosh, I know this is crazy. Your final exam is a week from Monday. It is on the 29th and it is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't pick the times for this, but in case people are taking more than one class, we have to stick to the university exam schedule. So anyway, so it is going to be at 3 o'clock. We'll talk more about that on Thursday of next week when we review for your final exam and just kind of do all the housekeeping details for that. So be sure to tune in on Thursday the 25th for additional information about the final exam. There will be a final exam review available, and we'll talk more about that next week also. Okay, so we're going to jump into this last section in chapter 6.4. Are there any, before I do this, are there any questions that you have right now, and you may come across them as we move on through this, maybe where you started working on chapter 6 and you ran into some problems? If anybody's got anything they need me to work, if they want to either chat it to me or scream and holler or something, or I can do those at the end, either way. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna do one more thing. So okay. So let's jump into section 6.4. So these are solving equations that have rational expressions. And so basically what this means is that we're solving equations where we have x's in the denominator. That's really all it is. And in the last section, the section that just kind of distressed you all, I could just tell yesterday you were so distressed, and it distressed me, but we're going to get through this, I promise. We found common denominators and we rewrote the problems. So when we solve rational equations, we're actually going to clear out the denominators. So one of the things that we can do is we can multiply everything through by a common denominator, and we can make the denominators go away. So that's how we're going to solve most of these. There's one little tricky one, and it's actually really nice. So, and we're going to see it early. So anyway, so we got this. So we're going to start by, guys, if you're joining me right now, if you're coming in and you did not hear me call roll or check your name off, please make sure you send me a message to tell me that you are here. So, because I know I've got several people who are popping in and I just see your names coming up and I'll forget to mark you. So on problem number 1, we know it's rational because it's got a variable x in the denominator, okay? So that's the first thing. So you have to make sure that you see that variable in the denominator, and that's going to tell you it's a rational equation, okay? So because it's a rational equation, we are going to figure out what the least common denominator is. And in this case, there's only one denominator, so it's going to be an x. So we are going to multiply in this entire equation by this x. And I'm actually going to rewrite my equation so that you can see exactly what I'm doing here. So I am going to go through and I'm going to multiply each and every term by x. So when I multiply x times this first x, this is going to turn into x squared. When I multiply x times 7 over x, this is going to turn into 7x over x. And when I multiply this term by x, I get minus 8x. Okay. And now I'm going to simplify it. So I'm going to multiply by my least common denominator, and then I'm going to simplify it. And so I have x squared plus 7 is equal to negative 8x. Now here's where I need you to think, and realize that I have a quadratic equation, okay? So because I have a quadratic equation, I need to move everything over on one side and set it equal to 0, okay? We solved some quadratic equations the other day by factoring, and we always started off with an equal to 0. So I'm going to take this quadratic because it's got x squared, and I'm going to move the 8x to the other side. So I have x squared plus 8x plus 7 is equal to 0. This is quadratic, okay? And we're going to solve it by factoring, okay? So we multiplied through by the common denominator, we simplified it, and we set it equal to 0, okay? So quadratic set equal to 0. And so I'm going to come over here and we're going to solve this. Remember, we have those two solutions that we're going to get. We're going to factor this. This is going to be a relatively nice problem to factor. And it's going to factor with an x and an x, and a plus 1 and a plus 7. And we're going to take each factor and set it equal to 0. And solve each of these little equations for x. And so I get x is equal to negative 1. And I get x is equal to negative 7, okay? Now, this is going to be the solution unless, I know there's always that, but wait. This is going to be the solution unless either one of these numbers makes the denominator 0. Well, if I check this and put negative 1 in here, I don't get 0. If I check this and put negative 7 in here, it doesn't give me 0. So both of these are going to be my solution. Two solutions. Okay? Questions? See, a couple folks have chimed in. Thank you, thank you. Excellent. All right. So that's one thing we're going to do when we solve these rational equations. Is one method we're going to use is to multiply by that common denominator, get them some type of quadratic, possibly sometimes it's not quadratic, and then we'll go about solving that quadratic equation. Okay. So this next part, so hello, you're here. Thank you. I see you. Excellent. Okay. So on this next part, I am going, this one's a little bit different. So this one's a little bit different because I have a fraction equal to a fraction, okay? So if you have an equation, write this down somewhere, where you have a fraction equal to a fraction. So fraction on one side equal to a fraction on the other side. You probably learned to solve this at some point in time along the way by cross multiplying, okay? So if it looks like this, so this is just that little bit different kind of problem. If I have fraction equal to fraction, then we are going to solve this by saying A times D is equal to B times C. So I'm going to multiply here, and I'm going to multiply here, and I'm going to set the two things equal to each other. And then I get rid of my fractions. So it's another way to get rid of the fractions. Now, I couldn't do this on number 1 because I didn't have a fraction on one side equal to a fraction on the other side, okay? So I didn't have just one fraction on each side, okay? But number 2, I have just one fraction on each side. I highly recommend that you use this method for solving this kind of equation, okay? So that means that I'm going to do x minus 4 times x plus 1 equals, and now I'm going to take the bottom over here, so x plus 3 times x plus 4, okay? So top times bottom is equal to bottom times top, okay? And so now I'm going to multiply these together, and I'm going to get really nice things on both sides, and I'm going to figure out how to solve this. So if I multiply this together, I have x squared plus x minus 4x minus 4. And over here on the right-hand side, I have x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. Okay. Simplify before you solve is still part of this process. So multiply is part of the simplify process. So now I'm going to continue to simplify. So I have x squared minus 3x minus 4 is equal to, over here on the right-hand side, I have x squared plus 7x plus 12. Okay, I've simplified. Now I need to solve it. I have x squares in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to move everything over to the other side. But notice that I have a single x squared on both sides. So when I solve this by subtracting x squared from both sides, that's going to be my first step. I'm going to show you this, and it's going to work. My x squared terms go away, and that becomes an amazing problem. So I'm left with negative 3x minus 4 is equal to 7x plus 12. I no longer have a quadratic equation, and that means I say a happy dance. I do a happy dance, and I say a little excitement statement, because no quadratic means that I don't have to factor. I'm just solving a super nice equation. Okay, so now we're going back to solving equations from the very beginning, like the end of the first week of classes this summer, and no more factoring. So if I have a single x squared on both sides, and that's what's going to happen with this cross multiplication problem. If I have that single x squared, I'm going to subtract it, and it's going to disappear. So now I can go about subtracting 7x from both sides. And so we'll do this in pieces. And so that's going to give me my negative 10x. And I still have minus 4 is equal to 12 over here. And now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And so when I add 4 to both sides, I'm going to end up with negative 10x on this side is equal to positive 16 on this side. And I divide both sides by negative 10. And I get that x is equal to 16 over negative 10. And that's going to simplify to negative 8/5. And that is my final answer. Oh, that was a long one. Questions? This is actually my favorite kind of rational equation to solve, because it's just whoosh, it's just the same process. Fraction equal to fraction, I cross multiply. I love to cross multiply. I don't know why, I just do. I think because the x squared goes away. That makes me happy too. Okay. All right, guys. Fun times ahead. Okay. So this one is a little bit challenging. So in that, when we looked at problems the other day, I told you that in order to simplify those, we had to factor before we did anything else. So you do have to factor the third part of this. It's not going to be that hard, and I'm trying to make sure that everything I give you here is something that you can look through as you're doing your homework and taking your quiz, so that you've got some really good examples here. So as I look at my three denominators, 1 over y minus 2 is just 1 over y minus 2. There's nothing I can do to that. And then the 10, there's not a whole lot I can do with 10. However, I can factor a greatest common factor out of these two. So this becomes 5 times y minus 2. Now, this is typically going to be something you see over here. So you want to factor the denominators if possible. Okay, I can't factor the first one. I'm not going to factor the second one, but the third one has a greatest common factor. And that's going to help me figure out my least common denominator. So again, I'm going to go through and I want to talk to you about finding that least common denominator. I look for the largest number, and the largest number is 10. 5 divides into 10. So 10 is part of my least common denominator. Now I look to see, and two of these have a y minus 2. So I need a y minus 2 in my least common denominator. So now, and again, I'm just going to rewrite this so that I can scribble all over the place. And I just think it's kind of helpful for you to see this. And then I have my -4, and then 5 times y minus 2. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply everything up here by this 10 times y minus 2. And so I'm going to multiply 10 y minus 2 times this part. I'm going to multiply 10 times y minus 2 on this fraction, and I'm going to multiply 10 times y minus 2 on this fraction. Notice I'm just multiplying it in the numerator, because when you multiply a fraction by a number, you're just multiplying the numerator, okay? But notice how I am multiplying it, and I'm writing it on each one of these, okay? All right. Okay. All right. So when I do this, I'm going to cancel some things out, okay? So here my y minus 2 cancels out. And so I should get rid of the denominators. If I have denominators left, then I've got a problem. So try to get rid of all your denominators. So my denominator here is gone. I have 10 times 1, which is just 10. Okay, so 10 times 1 is going to give me 10. I can go ahead and write in that 10 times 1. Sometimes we need to see that. Okay. In the second part, 10 is going to divide out. And so I'm going to be left with plus, and then I'm going to have 1 times y minus 2, right? And this is going to be equal to, now let's see with here, my y minus 2 divides out, and 5 divides into 10 leaves me with 2. And so over here on the right-hand side, I have -4 times 2. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see if you guys make sure you're all caught up with me. All right. So I multiplied everything through by that least common denominator. I canceled out my denominators with something in that least common denominator. And what I was left with, I multiplied times what was in the original numerators. And so now I'm going to simplify this. This is going to give me 10 plus y minus 2 equals -8. Still simplifying, I have y plus 8, because I have 10 minus 2, is equal to -8. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So I'm subtracting 8 from both sides, and this gives me y is equal to -16. And that is my final answer. Questions? Okay, so I just wrote out the steps over there on the side. So factor your denominators, find that least common denominator, and multiply everything by that least common denominator. Simplify, and then we solve. Questions? Okay. Similar kind of problem. Okay. So again, I have a denominator of x minus 1. If it's an x to the first power, I'm not going to be able to factor. There's nothing in front. There's nothing power. I can't factor that. X plus 1, I can't factor. However, x squared minus 1, I can factor. Okay. So starting off this problem again, I'm going to rewrite it factoring my denominators. Again, I can't factor the first one. I am going to change this as I write this. Notice I'm changing this to plus a negative 10. Okay, I am going to do that. Remember I told you that yesterday, it just makes life a lot nicer if I can get rid of the minus sign there. So I make this plus and I change that to a negative. And then I have 1 over, and here's where I'm going to factor x plus 1 times x minus 1, okay? So I factored this, and I changed this to plus a negative, okay? Just makes life a whole lot nicer. So my least common denominator, I start over here with x minus 1, so I have to have an x minus 1 in it. I move over here, I have to have an x plus 1. And then I notice that both of those comprise my other denominator. So life is great, okay? That is my least common denominator, okay? So again, I'm just going to write this problem out. That is a 9, not an A. That so looks like an A. That's terrible. That is a 9 over x minus 1 plus a negative 10 over x plus 1. And that's going to be equal to 1 over x plus 1, x minus 1. Notice I left lots of big space here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I'm going to multiply every piece by x plus 1 times x minus 1. Every piece, I'm going to put it up here in the numerator, okay? Doesn't matter what order I do them in, I just have to have both those pieces. So I had a student one time who tried to write, I swear they could put a problem in like this much space. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? You can't see it. I can't see it. Nobody can see it. Spread it out. Take up space, okay? Write down all of the steps. Because when you go back and look at it, you need to see all of those steps. Because otherwise, you're going to go, oh, why do we do this? Why did she say that? Why did she do this? Okay, so write down those steps. So leave yourself lots of space to work problems. Please. Okay, so I know we're killing a few trees, but we grow amazing amounts of trees in Mississippi. Grow them all the time. We have great growing seasons around here, so we can grow lots to replace them. All right, so let's go about simplifying this. X minus 1 divides out in this first part. And so I am left with 9, and I'm left with x plus 1. Okay? In the second part, x plus 1 divides out. And so I'm left with plus negative 10 times x minus 1. Okay? And then over here on the right-hand side, my x plus 1 divides out, and my x minus 1 divides out, and I am simply left with 1. Don't lose the 1. There's still a 1 there. It's still hanging out. Okay? And now I'm going to simplify. So I factored, found my least common denominator, I multiplied by that least common denominator, and now I'm going to simplify. Okay? So 9x plus 9 plus negative 10x plus 10 is equal to 1. Still simplifying, negative x plus 19 is equal to 1. Because I have a 9 and a plus 10, because remember that negative went distributing through here. Okay. So now I'm going to subtract 19 from both sides. And that's going to give me negative x is equal to negative 18. And I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. And I get positive x is equal to positive 18. Another lovely value. Now, I mentioned a while ago, sometimes you do have to be a little bit careful. When you check these, if anything makes this denominator 0, I can't use it. Okay, so just know that when you check these, and you should be checking these, but when you check these, if I get 1 or -1, my whole problem blows up, okay? Because I can't have 0 in the denominator. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday. Okay. So number 5 here. First things first. Somebody tell me what I need to do first. We did it on this problem, and we did it on this problem. Yep, I need to factor. Yep. And in order to find my least common denominator, I need to factor. Yep, you both got it right. So I got several answers, and they were both correct. So I'm going to start with my x over x minus 3 plus 3 over x plus 3 is equal to 18 over, and lo and behold, x plus 3 and x minus 3 are my factors. And we should have relatively nice problems like this. I'm really not out to get you on these factoring problems. I did enough of that yesterday. Okay, so now we can decide what our least common denominator is. And our least common denominator is x minus 3 times x plus 3. Okay, quite often this is going to be the case. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to rewrite these. And so I can multiply through by that denominator. Notice I'm leaving myself lots of space here. Okay, before I do anything else, I want to backtrack for just a second. There are actually, I mean, and I mentioned this a while ago, and it didn't cause us a problem, but you never know when it is. X can't be 3 or -3. Okay, why? Well, because if x is 3, it makes this denominator 0. And if x is -3, it makes this denominator 0. So you can say, and sometimes if you've got multiple choice answers, you can eliminate half the answers by saying, well, it can't be what makes the denominator 0. So kind of a nice little bonus part there. So just FYI, make sure you do kind of look at that. Most of the time it's not an issue, but kind of pay attention to that. Okay. All right. So we found our least common denominator. We're going to multiply through by that least common denominator. X minus 3, x plus 3. I just love to write it in up here. X minus 3, x plus 3, and x minus 3, and x plus 3. Okay. And so now I'm going to go about simplifying. X minus 3. When you do this correctly, you should have no denominators left again. Okay. So I'm left with x plus 3 times x plus, here we go again, x plus 3 is going to divide out. So I have plus 3 times x minus 3. And then, that's just terrible. My 3's are just not happy 3's today, sorry. X minus 3 equals, and now my x plus 3 divides out, and my x minus 3 divides out, and I am left with, on the right-hand side, 18. Lovely number, okay? So I factored the denominators, found my least common denominator, multiplied through by that least common denominator, and now I need to simplify, okay? So simplify means I'm going to distribute this, and so this is going to give me x squared plus 3x plus 3x minus 9 is equal to 18. All right, we're still going to simplify, but you know what's going to happen? I'm still going to be stuck with that x squared, but that's okay. So I'm actually going to simplify, and then I'll talk to you about what we need to do. So we've simplified this left-hand side, and that's beautiful and it's lovely, and I'm left with an x squared. Okay, because I'm left with an x squared, I have to set it equal to 0. Okay, so because there is still an x squared, I have to set it equal to 0. So you must set it equal to 0. So that means I'm going to get x squared plus 6x, and looks like I'm minus 27 is equal to 0. Move my 18 over here, right? That's because I still have that quadratic. Huge thing here, okay? Huge. All right, so how do I solve a quadratic equation? I factor it. So now I'm going to factor this. So factoring my quadratic, I need a product to give me 27, whose sum is 6 plus 9 minus 3 equal to 0. Lovely. Okay, but in order to solve this, I have to take each little piece and set it equal to 0. These are little pieces. And I get x is equal to negative 9 and x is equal to positive 3. Why am I going to tell you that the solution for this problem is x equals negative 9 only? Why? Who can tell me why? Who can tell me why? Nope. It can't equal to 3. Why can't it equal to 3? Don't tell me because I listed it up there at the top. That's not an acceptable answer. What does 3 do to my problem? Yes, 3 makes the denominator 0. So my only solution is negative 9. Excellent. Very good. Yay. Oh, I'm having so much fun. Okay. Let's see. What else we got? Another one. I know. I'm giving you so many examples. You can say thank you later. No, it's okay. All right. So we're going to go through the same process again. We've got to factor these. You guys are amazing. I know I'm going to give you 1,000 examples. Okay, maybe only 10 examples. Maybe only 7. All right. I only have to worry about factoring the x squared minus 25. I really just thought we needed lots of practice problems factoring, so that's part of why we're doing this. It really is. So we need lots of factoring problems. Okay. I need private chats from everybody who's here and with me. What is the least common denominator? Private chats, private chats. Make sure you're still here with me. Least common denominator. Least common denominator. I'm seeing lots of lovely answers. Seeing lots of lovely answers. It's very interesting to see something. Some of you are so close. We're going to look and see who else has joined us. If you are here, you can either say, I don't know, or I need a least common denominator. Otherwise, I'm going to think you have gone poof and disappeared, or gone to sleep, or drinking your coffee. IDK is perfectly fine. That's a lovely answer. This tells me you're alive, awake, and I don't need to send 911 after you. So. Hey, who else is still with me? Excellent, 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 excellent. Oh, nice, very nice. Okay, some of you guys have like gone to sleep. Probably need to send out the cavalry, but we'll check on the cavalry later. So, okay. Chelsea, I'm happy that yours is working. Okay. All righty. So some of you guys are not here anymore. I'm throwing things around my office. Okay. So watch everybody who put something in the chat and those of you who didn't, who are still asleep. You need to look at this because a couple of you guys had the right concept, but I want to make sure that you just kind of typed it in funky. So my least common denominator is the product of two binomials. It is x minus 5 and x plus 5. And it is this product of two pieces. The reason is I take my x minus 5 from the first one. I take x plus 5 from the second one. But then when I look at the third fraction, it already has x plus 5 and x minus 5, and only one of each. So I don't need two of anything, okay? I don't need any numbers other than that with x minus 5 and the x plus 5. So I don't need like a 10 in front or anything like that. So be super careful there and make sure you're just pulling those things from the denominator, okay? So now we're going to go through, we found the least common denominator. That was most excellent. Now we're going to go through and we're going to multiply by this least common denominator. Oh, that's a 2 1. Why can't I got double one? So x plus 5 is on this one, and then I have 50 over here, and I have x plus 5 and x minus 5. And I'm going to multiply, literally write this down. Please do this. It really is not painful. I'm going to write down x minus 5 times x plus 5 in this numerator, and I'm going to write x minus 5 and x plus 5 in this numerator, and I'm going to write x minus 5 and x plus 5 in this numerator. Right? All right. Now, I am going to simplify. X minus 5 goes away. So what I'm left with is x times x plus 5. Okay? Plus x plus 5 goes away. So now I have 1 times x minus 5. Right? Over here, x plus 5, x minus 5, go away. Equals 50. Right? Now I have to simplify. X squared plus 5x plus x minus 5 is equal to 50. And I'm still seeing that squared term show back up. I didn't change anything here because I'm multiplying by a positive 1, and so it just stays x minus 5. Still simplifying, x squared plus 6x minus 5 is equal to 50. Because it's quadratic, have to set it equal to 0, okay? If you need to write that process down on every single problem, write it down. Factor, least common denominator, multiply by least common denominator, simplify, quadratic, equal to 0, okay? So I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides. And so I have x squared plus 6x minus 55 is equal to 0. Aha! Factors. I need factors of 55 whose sum is positive 6. Now give me factors of 55 whose sum is positive 6. That means one has to be positive and one has to be negative. So I need to know what goes here. 55. I need to get 55. X plus something, x minus something. Come on. Okay, well, my little chat thing's not liking me. I can see you guys, but it's okay. Aha. All right, I'm seeing some folks I didn't see one then. Yay. Okay, so I think we're getting this. We've got a plus 11 and a minus 5, right? So negative 5 and positive 11 give me negative 55, but when I add them together, I get a positive 6. But I'm not done yet because x plus 11 has to be set equal to 0 and x minus 5 has to be set equal to 0. Okay? I am not paused. Okay. I don't, we're having like technical issues here. Okay. I can't even chat to you now, so I don't know. Oh, it won't let me chat. So, okay. All right. So x is equal to, we're going to finish this out. X is equal to negative 11 and x is equal to positive 5. Okay. I need help here. I'm going to give you choices. No, I'm not. I'm going to let you tell me. Are both of those my solutions? Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay. Are both of those my solutions? And if not, which one is my solution? Correct. Excellent. Ooh, yes. Excellent. 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 Why can't I use 5? That's such a lovely number. Why can't I use it? Those of you who are telling me only negative 11, I need to know why I can't use 5. Yes, it makes the denominator of the original problem 0. Yes, 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 yes. Excellent, fabulous. Y'all are amazing. Okay. Oh, okay. Last problem. This is the last problem. I'm so excited. So that is amazing and wonderful and fabulous. Okay. Okay, so first things first, we don't need to factor the first one. It is lovely, x plus 3. We don't need to factor the second one. It is lovely. It is x plus 5. We need to factor this lovely right-hand side. And you know what? It's going to factor. On these problems, I'm going to tell you a secret. On these problems, it may not always work, but I would check and see if these two factors give you this. Just a thought. Most of the time it will work. Not 100% of the time, but about 98% of the time on these problems that we're contriving and making up for you, it will factor like that. And it does indeed. The sum of 3 and 5 is 8 and the product is 15. Okay. Least common denominator. Again, x plus 3, x plus 5. Okay, that's it. That's all my least common denominator is. I'm going to go through and once again, I'm going to write it out. I figure if I do this enough times that maybe you guys will start to do this too because, well, you don't have anything else to do other than just watch me write stuff. So maybe you're writing it down. If I'm writing it down, I don't know. I have some really strange ideas sometimes. So, but I do think it's really important that you write down where you multiply by this least common denominator. Some of you are saving trees. Don't save the trees. We have plenty of them. Don't save your ink, your lead, your, I don't know, crayon that you're writing with. I like to write with crayons. I don't like colored pencils though. Colored pencils don't stay sharp. All right. Let's do this. X plus 3 cancels out. I have a 1 times x plus 5. Next one, x plus 5 cancels out. I have plus 7 times x plus 3. On the right-hand side, x plus 3, x plus 5, cancel out. equal to 2. All right, I'm kind of tired, so I'm going to let y'all solve it from here, and then we'll check it. So when you get a value for x, I want you to chat it to me privately. And I'm going to sit here and tell everybody who is still with me. Some of you guys I don't think are with me, but everybody sends me an answer. Any place else to go? Got a couple answered, answering you back. Y'all doing great. Make sure you tell me what you think x is. Several of you have the right idea, but you need to make sure that it works. A couple of folks, I'm still waiting to hear from a couple of people. Some of y'all are doing great. And again, your answer can be, I don't know. Hey, we're getting this. We're getting this. We're getting this. It's okay. I know. I still got some IDKs. It's okay. I'm okay. I understand that. So we're good. Nika, you're cracking me up. Okay. All right. I think I've heard from everybody who's here now. So okay. So let's finish this. Okay. So when I simplify, I get x plus 5, and I get 7x plus 21. And you guys were rocking it. You were doing great through here. Okay. This was fabulous. And then you simplified this and you got 8x plus 26 is equal to 2. And everything looked great at this point. And then you kept going and you got 8x is equal to negative 24. And that was amazing. And then you divided both sides by 8 and you got x was equal to negative 3. And you sent me negative 3 as your answer. And I said, I said, you need to check. Or I just simply said, nope, it doesn't work. You have got some other things, but hopefully we figured out why. Why did I tell you no? What does negative 3 do? Why is negative 3 a problem? A couple of you who told me it didn't work. Why doesn't it work? Other than the fact that you just didn't like it, or I was mean and said no. What is the problem with negative 3? No. We like negative 3. Negative 3 is a lovely answer. Why does negative 3? What do you mean by it doesn't check? What does negative 3 make this denominator? It makes this denominator 0. Okay, so negative 3 makes the denominator of the 1 over x plus 3, it makes it equal to 0. And that's bad. We can't have 1 over 0. So if this x value, while ago on the last problem, you guys were great. You said fine. We didn't care. We just used negative 11. Life was good. We just threw out that 5. It made this denominator 0. Everything was fine. But now all of a sudden, when this makes the denominator 0, you're like, what the heck? So if the only value of x you get makes the denominator 0, then this problem has no solution. And the alternate way to write this might be to say that it's an empty set. Okay. And that's possible. You may think there's something wrong with that, but there's nothing mathematically wrong with that. Okay. I know it's kind of a pain in the tail that you worked all this problem and found no solution. But hey, the real world sometimes has no solutions. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that has no solutions. I don't know what the solution for COVID-19 is. So anyway, all right. Online classes. Questions. Was this better than yesterday? Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, I think it sometimes is. So, okay. So here is my question for you, because a bunch of you have not done your homework. I know you have not, because I looked. Yes, I did. Before I came in here, I looked. Okay. Do you have questions on yesterday or today? Because I'll be real honest, if you don't have questions, what I really want you to do is I want you to go away and I want you to work on that homework. And I want you to send me a message or jump back on this WebEx session if you have questions. But I want you to get caught up on this homework. Okay? Go away. Go away. Go away. And if you want to talk to me. Bill, are you still here? Hang on. Leilani, bear with me for just a minute. Bill.
Sure.
Bill. Let me see if young man is still here. I don't think he is. We may get on another WebEx session. Come on. Hey, Bill. Mr. Johnson. Oh, where are you? He hadn't been here. He jumped in and he disappeared. Okay, so let me if I give you my phone number, can you just call me?
Sure.
Okay. It's
At the office?
yeah, it's 325-7161.
7161, okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna you can just get off of this if you want to, because I'm gonna mute myself. So
Okay.
all right. Thank